You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, we're going to dip into the world of virtual assistants. For some, that might be a foreign thought, no pun intended, but for others, it's an amazing opportunity that if you haven't explored it or tried it, you may well want to consider it. My guest is a gentleman who has himself kind of come up through the business ranks, did not know the value of virtual assistants until a particular turning point in his career. And I'll let him share more of that detail. My guest today is named Blendy Mercuri. Mariki, I'm sorry, I asked you and I still butchered it. Mariki, yeah. Blendy, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, and don't worry about it. To this day, I still have friends that I've known for 10 years that butcher it.
Don't get it right.
Yeah, it's all good. So,
well,
yeah.
If it's any consolation, even my name, as kind of intuitive as it ought to be, Thorpe, I can't tell you how many times I get called Thrope or Thrope, or people just don't see all the letters there, so it's I'm with you.
You can do what a lot of people do, like they'll go to Europe and they'll put a little accent on their name to make it sound a little bit more European,
a little more exotic.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Doug Thorpe.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, well, Blendy, so we teased out the idea of virtual assistants. You were sharing with me kind of in the green room your journey to realize the value. Tell our listeners how that came together for you.
It started in college. I'll take a step back. I've always been passionate about entrepreneurship. I started my first company at the age of 17. I was a high school student. My best friend and we saw a problem in our school's community service system. A lot of schools across the United States, they track community service for graduation, for college, their college application. And back then, people were still using pen and paper to keep track of their hours. And it was my first sort of venture into entrepreneurship because we were just trying to solve a problem for our school. We didn't necessarily, we had the thinking that, yeah, this could be a business, but it was more so revolving around solving that problem. And so we created a software program that we managed to scale to schools across the New York City metropolitan area. And, it's still in operation to this day. But that was a turning point for me in understanding that I like to do sales because I was on the business side of things. I like to talk to people and I like to solve problems. I still wanted to be a lawyer. I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5 years old. And so I went into college with the thinking that, I'm gonna go to law school. And in my last year of college, I got the opportunity to work with a great mentor that brought me into his real estate investment company. And basically he was like, you're going to be my operations guy. I would work during the day. I would go to school at night, and I really enjoyed it. And come time to graduate, I had already studied for the LSAT, taken the LSAT, applied for law school, and the mentor was like, why don't you just come work for me full time for a year? Law school's always going to be there. I said, okay, yeah, get paid right out of college. It's a job worth having. So I went that route. That was a turning point because I had to, from the get-go, I was responsible for the operations of this large real estate firm. I was in charge of hiring. And in the beginning, I was doing everything myself. Um, Customer service, tenant relations, down to like issues that came up at 2 in the morning. I was the one that answered the phones.
Yeah.
Um, and out of that, there's this realization that you have at the time. I was not, the business owner, but I had a realization that in order to properly scale a business, you need a team. You need people. And I was also constrained, being located in New York City. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world. It's hard to hire a whole team without breaking the bank. So a friend of mine said, "Well, you should consider hiring an assistant overseas just to help you out, so you're not having to, wake up at 2 in the morning to answer messages, or, be at a dinner with your family and step away to take calls." So we started hiring a team of customer service agents from the Philippines, and I gained experience in the recruiting process through this real estate firm. And then when I moved on, I said, "Well, I have a bunch of friends that also could benefit from uh, teams like this overseas." So I just started recruiting for them. And that's when everything kind of culminated at once. We saw a problem and we're like, this problem is very widespread. Every business owner faces this at some point in their business trajectory. And the first thing when you're hiring, that when you're a small business and you're trying to scale, the name of the game is get everything that is low level tasks and responsibilities off your plate so you can focus on the big picture. And for me, as I was scaling this virtual assistant company, it was, oh, I need marketing. I need sales help. I need customer service help. And so we've been able to scale, delegate uh, to nationwide at this point. We cover different types of companies from medical to e-commerce to real estate to lawyers, and we're giving time back to the business owners that desperately need it in order to scale their business.
Well, let's talk about, for the small business owner who maybe hasn't tried engaging with a virtual assistant. I think one of the common fears that people think about is, I don't have time really to train exactly what I need. I mean, I don't mind explaining my specific task, but to me, the general work ethic, work skill level, all of that is an unknown. So how do you bridge that gap for a prospective business owner who's going to engage one of your assistants?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to frame this by asking a potential client or a customer, it's like, what is your long-term goal with the company? Are you where do you want to be at in 5 years? And with any hire that we provide them, they have to have baseline knowledge in the specific area that you're looking for. So if it's a contractor, that person, we don't want to train them from as if they're coming in from day one, they don't know anything. They have to have a baseline knowledge. But more importantly, they have to have the attitude and behaviors that set them up for success. So we are rigorously sourcing through thousands of potential candidates to find those right character traits that will give you a foundation for growth. In terms of training, and I have a straightforward conversation with clients about this. Your operation is only as good as your procedures and your training. If you're trying to scale from 1 to 10, it's going to be different from 10 to 100 to
Mm-hmm.
1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so we what we do is train our assistants to be proactive, to ask a business owner, like, hey, I noticed that you have this process in place, or you don't have a process in place. I know you have a general idea of how you want it done. Let's put it to paper. Because if I can help you set that up, now you we can take that and hire another 5 or 10 people down the road. So it's a matter of one, the base having a baseline knowledge of the industry that the person is in, a baseline knowledge of the technology that they're using, and then two, being really proactive with the business owner as an assistant and asking them the questions that will set guidelines and we call it standard operating procedures that they can use going forward in their business.
Right. No, you're right. And that's something I work with my own business owner clients about, is the idea that even with or without virtual assistants, the whole notion of creating process that is scalable and repeatable, because if you don't have your process defined and documented, whether it's a workflow or an SOP type document, number one, you can't train it. You can't assure the repeatability of it and the reliance and the level of quality with it, because everything's a one-off. Everything is a custom effort. So getting those processes and procedures laid down is vitally important. So now, doing it, especially those business growth elements, I think is one of the things that's intriguing to me about this idea.
Yeah, I like to think of it this way. I come across so many business owners that they have this mentality where, like, I have to do it myself. I have to do it myself. And that's such it's a constraining quality trait that business owners have, because they need to realize that if they can just they might have been a solopreneur for years, or they're just starting out and they have a specific skill set, but they have it all the way up here in their brain. If they were just to get it on paper and have a company like us deal with the rigorous sourcing that takes place in, when you're hiring someone for your company, it makes the process a lot easier. It sets your employees up for success. And this is the most important part of it. Every business owner, they have some sort of exit strategy. They, at some point, you're not going to run your business forever, and you want to be able to set up a business that you can sell in the future, or that takes care of itself. You can't do that without processes and procedures.
Yeah. Well, you're right on with that. The world I'm operating in now with buying and selling of businesses, that's one of the first things that will degrade and diminish the value of the business, is how much does the owner still do? How much does the owner touch every day, and how integral are they in the success of the business day over day? And if the answer to that is everything, then you don't have a valuable asset, because as soon as that owner exits, everything starts to crumble.
Yeah.
And if the owner has not done well with delegating, training, and handing that load off to others, it's one thing to monitor and check what's going on and keep the culture and the quality moving in the right direction. But it's a whole different thing to do it all yourself. And if you do want an exit, message to owners, you haven't created any value if it's you doing all the work.
Yeah, you see this a lot of times also, because there's different types of businesses that are quote unquote sellable, and the businesses with very high value, they have that characteristic where, like, the owner, they've built a culture, they've built the systems in place, they have the right people, and they can step away and the business will continue to churn profits, bring in profits, I should say. And And what you see with other businesses that are sold, where, a private equity firm will come in and they'll ask the business owner, okay, you have to stay on for another 2 to 3 years because we understand that the business isn't going to run without you.
Without you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what then that ends up meaning for the business owner is uh, less money up front that they get for the business, and B, this holding period where they have to become an employee essentially of the new owner, meet certain metrics in order for them to get that official payout. So do it early, concentrate on building those policies and procedures in place, building a strong team that will pay dividends.
So, Blindy, do you see any pattern in where owners start looking for this assistant support? Is it their own like personal VA, to take, their minutia off their plate and get on to the bigger things? I mean, where do most of your clients start out engaging VAs?
They start out as early business owners that they I'll give you a perfect example of someone that starts with us. You have an electrician that just runs around all day doing jobs. They do really good work. They have really good reviews and credentials. But at the end of the day, they're done at 7 p.m. And you know what they have to do when they go home?
Paperwork.
They have paperwork.
Yeah.
They got to do bookkeeping. They have to follow up with all those missed calls that they received throughout the day because they were working on a job site. Those are the types of business owners that see the most initial leverage from having an assistant. So that's one part of it. Then you have established businesses that are trying to cut costs, and they're trying to find a streamlined way to keep customer service consistent, to outsource, let's say, their sales because they're trying to bring down the costs. And that's where they look to companies like ours that can pull together whole teams of customer service agents or bookkeepers or marketing professionals. And they're paying 60, sometimes 70% less than if they were to have it here in the States. So there's two spectrums, but there, on one hand, it's the example of the electrician. It's really great leverage in the beginning because it allows that person to focus on growing the business. And then the other side of it is the cost cutting side for established businesses that they're just looking to outsource.
Well, and how do you address? What I'm getting ready to ask is not woke. It's not politically correct. It's all wrong for a lot of reasons. But I can't tell you how many business owners that I try to coach, and if I encourage them to think about VAs, the immediate place they go is language barrier, dialect. I don't want to have the wrong person representing my business.
Yeah.
How do you kind of work through that with an owner that's thinking that way?
Definitely. Well, it starts with sourcing from the right places. Obviously, if you're a United States-based company, English speaking, you're looking for really competent, well-spoken English speakers. And so we started out sourcing from the Philippines. Why the Philippines? It's an English-speaking country. The new generation that's coming into the workforce, or that has been in the workforce the last 10 years, they are more exposed to American culture than probably the two of us. They're watching the shows. they're following the American pop culture scene. They know some of the colloquial terms that I don't even know. I just the other day, this young assistant, um, she was like, bet. Now, that's something the Gen Zers are using right now where they say, yeah, that's great. They say bet. I didn't even know that. She taught me that, and she's located in the Philippines. So it you get what you pay for. That's the other thing I'll say. If you want to find someone for $2 an hour, I can find you someone for $2 an hour in India. Nothing against that, but there's going to be, there's going to be the language, not language barrier per se, but there's going to be the accent. There's going to be some
Dialect,
issues in communication and
pronunciation.
dialect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lost in
So
translation for some things. Yeah.
100%. So when we're sourcing, we have an extensive language test to ensure that these people are uh, competent, but they're also very well spoken in the English language. I will say that when that's more on like the client facing side, if you are looking for data entry positions, something that's a webmaster, that's where the language doesn't necessarily, it's not prohibitive to hiring, and you get a lot of benefit out of it for the cost that you're paying. So it all it all boils down to the sourcing. There are people that have had really bad experiences. I've spoken to people in the past where they've used overseas VAs, and they're just like, I don't want to deal with it because of the language issue, the cultural differences. I'm like, you didn't source well enough. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
Doug, there's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a lot of great talent outside of the United States. It's just
Oh,
a matter
I
of being able to tap into it.
totally agree. I had an experience a number of years ago. I spent part of my career in the mortgage finance sector, and I had a client who owned a mortgage company out in California, and he was convinced that none of the systems that did mortgage loan origination worked well. He had more money than he knew what to do with. So he hired this big team of programmers over in the Philippines. And he asked me to come alongside and provide some technical expertise to design this thing and conquer all the issues and ills that were out in the industry. And I agreed. I told him I was interested and would help, and so we got started. And one of the first things we ran into, you're a real estate guy, you can probably appreciate this. In the average mortgage loan file, there are about 200 dates that you have to track, and every one of them has a significant meaning, whether it's compliance or contractual or
Of course.
whatever. But it's all these different dates, that you have to capture and track. And the team that he had sourced in the Philippines could not get it. You threw a date at them, and it was like, well, the note date ought to be the date, right? And it's like, no, that's only one of hundreds.
Yeah.
And we went round and around and around, and we would get a draft of something, and it's like, why is this showing this date? Well, that's the date you told me. No, that's not the date I told you. And we were going back and forth, it was not a pleasant experience, I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the disheartening thing about being in this industry is there's so many stories like that of folks that business owners that have decided to outsource, and they just have, a nightmare of an experience. Um, but I will say this, for every situation like that people have, there's another 10 situations where people have a nightmare of
Oh
experience
yeah.
hiring here in the United States.
Right. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and, and
Yeah.
and
And
paying more for it and not getting the value that you ought to get for what you're paying. So it boils down to A, making sure that you have, like we were talking about before, a solid training program in place, and B, making sure that you are not overlooking hiring a wide swath of
So
people.
what are the opportunities if so I'm sitting here as a business owner. I'll use mine. I'll use mine. So let's say I've decided that my new initiative, my next strategic step, I want to build a marketing team. I want to have a team that's going to do all my marketing for my brand and everything we put out there. Can I get access to levels? I mean, can I literally find somebody that would be the manager of that team that then would deal with, 2 or 3 levels below that to get the work done?
100%. And I did it myself within my company. Um, the mistake I made in the beginning is when I hired for a marketing position, I just thought that I could just hire someone that's a generalist that knows how to post on social media, and, they'll post on Instagram on a weekly basis. No, you have different tiers. So what I did for my company, and, I'd say it for you as well, is you want to start with a marketing director, someone that's high level, strategic, that has had experience with campaigns in the past, um, either on the organic side or on the paid advertising side. So for on my end, I wanted to find a marketing director that has extensive experience with paid advertising. And I was like, okay, I'm at a stage in my business where I can find someone here in New York. You know how much a marketing director costs in New York City? It's six figures to say the least. So I said, well, let's look overseas. So I found a marketing director in the Philippines that has worked with Western companies before, as a marketing director, head of advertising, and that has managed multiple team members. So from there, I would focus on the head person, and that person would actually be a asset to me in hiring the trickle down position. So what you need a copywriter, right? You need someone that's a an editor, graphic designer, editor, because if you're in a position where you're pushing out content, you're trying to build a brand, you need someone that can just on a weekly basis push out content for you. I can't do that myself. And then you go a level down, and hiring a marketing assistant. That marketing assistant is there to set you up with meetings. So in this case, the reason we're here today, my marketing assistant, she just reaches out to influencers, business owners, to have opportunities like we're having today. I don't have to deal with any of that, the nitty gritty. I just focus on the high level strategic goals, and those conversations I have with the marketing director. And, from there, we talk budget, we talk what is our goal for this quarter in pushing out content, in converting more leads that we have, through our advertising channels.
Right. Well, Blindy, I think this has really been good and helpful, and thank you. But I'm noticing we're about up on time here for today, and I feel like I could keep talking about this for quite a while. I think there's so much opportunity here, and I want to go back and anchor on the one point that if you're a business owner, every owner I ever know say they want to grow and they want to scale. That's kind of just somewhere in the early commentary about why they're doing their business. But my message is if you're not making steps to help that happen, it's not going to happen, because if nothing else, there are only so many hours in the day. And if the common denominator is you, it's going to cap out. And
Oh, 100%.
there's no denying that. It's an inevitable truth. So if you can leverage and multiply your capacity by training others to do the task, do the work simultaneously while you're doing other things to continue that growth of the business, then you're going to cap out, you're going to plateau. There's a max capacity that's going to exist. So got to be done.
100%. We have a slogan that we go by here at Delegate: focus on success, delegate the rest. And, that's any successful business owner from, the Fortune 500 CEO that built his business from scratch to the electrician on the ground. If they are not delegating early on in their business, they will plateau very quickly.
Yep. So, Blindy, tell everybody the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more.
Yeah, I like to say I love building rapport with people first and foremost. Go on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, Blendy Mariki. You'll see my name in the show notes. And if you're interested in delegating and you're interested in scaling your business and taking your business to the next level, all while taking time back, reclaiming your time, visit delegate.co to learn more.
Very good. And Blendy is right. We are going to have all of that information in the show notes, as we always do. And I like to remind people that we do have a video version of this show over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, check out the archives, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and share any ideas you've got for future episodes. So one last time, Blendy, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Doug.
All right, folks, with that, we're going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.